Okay, continuing with our little snowman. As you can see, he's really taking shape. He's really starting to look good. And we just kind of round this off a little bit more in here. See how from the back, how it looks, in other words? Okay. Now, we've got a little scarf up here. Keep this rounded off in here. Not too much, just the edges. There you go, where it doesn't look flat. Now, I'm going to do something on this scarf. A lot of these scarves. I'm going to put a little thing on the bottom here. Move a little wood right there. And take my V-tool and put some another little braided things that hang at the bottom of the scarf. There you go. There you are. So you can do little things that are just unique. The pattern didn't call for that, in other words. But see that? At the bottom of the scarf? Okay. Now, I want to show you something. A lot of people like to make their own buttons, but Tom Wolfe, the great character carver Tom Wolfe, he taught me a little lesson about making buttons. I think this is ideal. I take a little drill, just drill a little hole. Now let me rev it up just a little bit. Drill a little hole here. Drill a little hole here. Drill a little hole here, okay? Now, see? Just drill some little holes right there. Now you take a matchstick, take a little matchstick, and you sort of round it off here. Just very lightly round it off here at the end. And you take that matchstick. I round it off too much. Let me break it off. Hold on. I'm getting in a hurry here. In fact, I think you may just be able to just stick it in there, in other words. Take a little matchstick. There we go. That matchstick fits right in there. I take a little matchstick. Now watch this. Tell you when you're not working at a... Take a little super glue when you can get the top off of it. Oh, super glue. There we go. It sits up for a while. It has a tendency to put a little super glue in there. Put your matchstick in there, okay? Alright. Let me take another little matchstick. Break it off. Take a little super glue. Let me put it on the end of the matchstick. Put it in there. Okay? Get that in there. And take another little matchstick. Well, it's going to have to be. Just a second. The edge of it. Put a little super glue on it and stick it right in there. See? Just like that. Now, I think you got the general idea of what I'm doing here. Okay? And Tom Wolfe has taught that that's the way he makes buttons a lot of times. We're going to let that dry right in there a little bit. Then when you get through, you simply take your knife and you cut that off. You cut those buttons off, in other words, where they actually protrude in such a way. In fact, this may be dry enough to do it. First of all, let me break it. There we go. Where those buttons actually stand out. And then you can kind of carve them down a little bit. See? Watch. And you've got your little button. It sticks out. Now, a toothpick works even better than a matchstick, in other words. I found because a matchstick has a tendency to splinter. There it is. Okay. I said a toothpick is much sturdier and it does a much better job. It doesn't splinter as bad as a matchstick does, or a little dowel or whatever. In other words, but you take that and you carve that down right there, and you've got little protruding buttons. Is what you've got. In other words, see, just like that. See that? The little buttons, they protrude. Kind of shape them up a little bit, in other words. But that's one of the tricks of doing that, in other words. Now, like I said, I usually use little dowels, but I just use a little matchstick today. And that makes the buttons protrude more. Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and do the face. Now, let me get my pencil here. The face is relatively simple. First of all, we'll just do the smile on the little snowman. Okay, see? That's relatively simple. You just take your knife and you follow it along there. And then on each side, you come down like this.